Sometimes a courtroom isn't just a place for justice. It's where buried memories claw their way back to life. What would you do if the person who shattered your world sat calmly in front of you, smiling like nothing happened? Let us know in the comments section below. Judge Monique Preston didn't flinch when the courtroom door opened. Her spine was straight, hands folded neatly on the bench, gaze locked on the stack of documents in front of her. Every part of her body was trained for control, discipline, decades of survival sharpened into stillness. She glanced up briefly to scan the courtroom. Counsel on both sides, a tired bailiff near the wall, a couple of bored college interns in the gallery for class credit. Just another Thursday in juvenile support court. Until she saw him. Her mouth didn't move. Her breath didn't shift. But something deep in her chest caved in like glass under a boot. There he was. Same lazy posture. Same smirk that tried to pass for charm but reeked of entitlement. Reggie Carson. 27 years. He hadn't aged well. She could feel it coming up from her stomach, rage, grief, disbelief, twisting together like barbed wire. But nothing moved on her face. A judge doesn't blink. A judge doesn't scream. Not here, not with him in front of her. The court clerk's voice called out like it was in a tunnel. Docket 341B, State of Georgia versus Reggie Carson, failure to comply with child support enforcement. Respondent is present and unrepresented. Unrepresented. Of course he was. Reggie strolled to the defendant's table like he was headed into a jazz lounge. No briefcase. No notes. Just that crooked, sideways confidence that once made 17-year-old Monique trust the world when she should have run. She cleared her throat and spoke, cool as steel. Mr. Carson, you're appearing today in response to multiple notices regarding unpaid child support for a child identified in court records as TP. The amount in arrears is listed at $134,829.34. Reggie leaned into the microphone, eyes twinkling like he was on stage. That's a lot of numbers, Your Honor, but I think we both know paperwork doesn't always tell the real story. Monique's stomach turned. She didn't look at him. Not directly. She focused on the file, flipping through page after page of unanswered notices, skipped hearings, letters returned unopened. Do you deny paternity, Mr. Carson? No, ma'am, he said, real slow like he was savoring each word. Tyrell's mine. Far as I know. The sound of that name from his mouth felt like poison in her ears. But life ain't always neat, you know. Sometimes folks gotta make choices. Sometimes things fall apart. He gave a shrug. I was just trying to get by. That ain't a crime, is it? Her voice stayed calm, but the words cut. No, Mr. Carson, the crime is ignoring your legal and moral obligation to your child. He chuckled. Moral obligation, that's a strong phrase. Depends on who you ask. She finally looked at him. Just for a second. He tilted his head as if trying to place her. He hadn't figured it out yet. That stung more than it should have. He didn't even recognize her. Her. The woman he left behind at 19 with a baby. No help, no calls, nothing. She glanced down again, but her hand shook as she flipped the page. Damn it, the bailiff noticed. Monique forced her fingers still. She couldn't crack. Not now. Mr. Carson, according to the records, you were gainfully employed for several years, yet you made no consistent payments. Do you have documentation showing financial hardship? I had gigs, Your Honor, Reggie replied. Music gigs. But you know how that goes, feast or famine. You ever try to chase a dream and pay bills at the same time? Yes, every single day. But she didn't say that. He kept going. Look, I ain't saying I did everything right, but people act like I vanished. I didn't vanish. I just stepped back. Let folks live their life. He didn't step back, she wanted to scream. You disappeared. "Did you ever call?" she asked quietly. Reggie blinked. "Excuse me? Did you ever call? Write? Send anything even once to ask about Tyrell? I thought maybe they didn't want me around. Maybe it was better that way." He squirmed. It was complicated. She closed the file and leaned back. Suddenly it wasn't a courtroom anymore. It was that apartment in Westview, a baby crying, diapers she could barely afford, finals she had to take with swollen eyes, and every time someone knocked at the door, she hoped it was him. Just once. But he never came. Now he sat in front of her, like he hadn't ruined 2 lives with his silence. The court reporter typed on, oblivious. "Mr. Carson, this court requires more than anecdotes and excuses. We're here because of inaction, not circumstances." He scratched his neck. "All right, maybe I could have done more. But you don't know what it's like. Being broke, being lost, trying to stay out of jail while the world's against you." "I do," she snapped. The room went quiet. Even the reporter paused. Monique stared at him, letting the moment stretch. Her next words came slowly. "I know exactly what that's like." And with those 7 words, Reggie froze, his brows furrowed, his eyes narrowed, studying her. Then his mouth opened just slightly, like something was starting to dawn. Wait a minute. Too late. Her gavel came down. "Court will recess for 10 minutes. She stood and walked through the side door before her face could betray her. Behind her, Reggie sat alone, jaw slack, confusion crawling across his features like a storm. And for the first time in decades, Monique Preston didn't know how the next 10 minutes would go. The air in Monique's chambers felt heavier than usual. She stood by the narrow window, arms crossed tightly over her chest as if trying to hold herself together. The familiar hum of the courthouse filled the silence. Muffled voices, footsteps echoing, a distant printer whirring. But none of it grounded her. She could still hear his voice. That smug, detached tone, like 27 years had meant nothing, like he hadn't carved a canyon through her life and left her to raise their son alone. The knock at her door was soft but firm. She didn't turn. "Come in," she said, steady as stone. Her clerk, Tasha, stepped in with a folder in one hand and concern in her eyes. "Your Honor? Just wanted to check in. We're set to resume in 5. Monique nodded but didn't move. Tasha hovered a beat longer. "Do you want me to clear the gallery? We could hold the rest of the hearing privately if you prefer." "No." Monique finally turned, her voice firm. "Let everyone watch. He deserves that much." Tasha hesitated. "Okay, I'll be right outside." Once the door clicked shut again, Monique looked down at her hands. They were shaking, just barely. Enough to make her furious. She took a breath, slow and deep, then grabbed her robe from the hook behind the door and slipped it back on like armor. Her heels tapped sharply against the tile as she made her way back to the bench. When she re-entered the courtroom, the tension was thick. Reggie sat with his elbows on the table, staring at the floor now, that lazy smirk wiped clean from his face. The gallery had grown. Word of drama in courtroom 3B always brought curious observers. A few interns leaned in, pens at the ready. The bailiff watched her like a hawk. Monique sat. The gavel didn't come down this time. She didn't need it. "Mr. Carson," she said calmly, "have you recalled who I am?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes searched her face like he was peeling back decades. Then, finally, with a low voice that didn't carry far, he said, "Monique?" A ripple of murmurs moved through the gallery. She didn't acknowledge it. "You left when I was 7 months pregnant," she said. "You told me you needed to figure some things out. That you'd be back in a week." Reggie's mouth opened, but nothing came out. You never came back. He finally found words. I thought you moved. I came by once and the place was empty. I didn't know where you went. I left because the rent was overdue and the lights got cut off. I left because I had a newborn and no formula. I left because no one showed up, not even you. Reggie winced. I was young, Monique. I didn't know what I was doing. I panicked. You had 27 years to unpanic. He looked down again, shame clouding his face. I'm not here for vengeance, she said. But I am here for accountability. Reggie leaned forward, his voice suddenly louder, more desperate. You think I haven't suffered too? You think I've had some sweet ride while you sat up here in your robe and gavel? Monique's eyes didn't flinch. You forfeited the right to compare struggles when you walked away. He stood. The bailiff moved closer, but she raised her hand. Let him speak. I made mistakes, all right, big ones. But I didn't know Tyrell. I never got the chance. That wasn't just on me. She rose from her chair, eyes burning. Yes, it was. He blinked. You knew where I went to school. You knew my sister. You knew my job. You even had my mama's number. You knew. You just didn't care enough to call. He dropped his gaze, jaw clenched. His voice was smaller when he said, I thought about it. All the time. I just didn't think I had a place anymore. Silence stretched. Monique looked toward the gallery, then back at him. The difference between thinking and doing is called action. You had every chance. And now? Now you'll face what you ran from. The door at the back creaked open. A figure stepped in quietly, head held high, young, tall, well-dressed in a charcoal blazer, hair braided neatly back. He carried himself with a calm intensity. Tyrell. He didn't look at Reggie. Not yet. His eyes went straight to Monique. She nodded once. Reggie turned at the sound of the footsteps. His brow furrowed. When Tyrell reached the front row of the gallery, he didn't sit. He faced Reggie squarely. You him, Tyrell said, aren't you? Reggie blinked. You? You're? I'm the kid you left behind. The room was dead silent. Not a breath dared stir. I don't know what you thought you'd find today, Tyrell continued. But I'm not here to hug it out. I'm not here to make you feel better. Reggie swallowed. I didn't know how to. You didn't try. Tyrell's voice cracked, just barely. You didn't write. You didn't call. You didn't even Google my name. I didn't know where to start, Reggie mumbled. You start by showing up, Tyrell snapped. Reggie lowered his head. Monique watched her son, her fierce, brilliant, wounded son, and something inside her pulled tight, but she stayed quiet. This moment wasn't hers to steal. I grew up thinking I wasn't worth showing up for, Tyrell said. Do you know what that does to a kid? I do, Reggie whispered. No, you don't. Tyrell stepped closer to the barrier. You don't get to stand there and pretend you understand. You don't get to wear pain like a jacket you picked up this morning. Reggie didn't answer. I'm not broken, Tyrell said. That's what you don't get. I had a mother who raised me right. She didn't just survive. She thrived. We thrived. Reggie's eyes welled up. Tyrell didn't stop. I've done more with my life than you ever dared to try. And I did it without you. So don't think for a second that this is about forgiveness. He paused. This is about truth. And you have to sit in it. Reggie sat, slowly, like the weight of it all finally found him. Monique's voice returned, quiet but firm. This court finds that Mr. Carson is liable for the full amount of arrears and will be subject to monthly wage garnishment. Enforcement will begin immediately. The gavel struck, but the real judgment had already fallen. Not from the bench. from the son who stood tall while the man who made him sank lower than ever before. The hallway outside courtroom 3B was crowded, but it may as well have been empty for the three people standing still in its center. Monique, Tyrell, and Reggie. Tyrell hadn't moved since the hearing ended. His hands were in his pockets, his shoulders tense, his mouth set in a hard line that betrayed just how much he was holding in. Reggie sat slouched on a bench near the wall, his eyes darting between the floor and his son. A man used to charming his way out of uncomfortable moments had finally run out of angles. Monique stood closest to Tyrell. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. For all her authority in that courtroom, she now felt like a guest in a moment that didn't belong to her. Reggie finally broke the silence. "I know I can't fix it." Tyrell didn't look at him. Reggie's voice was hoarse. "But I need you to know, I wasn't trying to be evil. I was just lost and scared." Monique stepped slightly to the side, not out of retreat, but to give her son room. Tyrell turned slowly, finally facing the man who had ghosted his entire childhood. "You know what's wild?" he said. "Every boy imagines what it'd be like to meet their father, even the ones that never show up. And when I pictured it, I thought maybe I'd feel something. Joy, rage, relief, anything." He paused. "But I feel empty. Like I'm talking to a stranger who keeps borrowing words from a script." Reggie flinched. "I get that. I do. But I'm here now. I'm trying." "Trying," Tyrell repeated, almost like a curse. "You showed up because you got dragged here. That's not trying. That's avoiding jail." Reggie opened his mouth but said nothing. "You think I don't know what you've been doing all these years?" Tyrell asked. "You had a whole other life. You made music, you traveled, you partied. You got arrested twice, once for weed, once for unpaid parking tickets in 3 counties. You had time for all of that, but not for me." Reggie looked away. "You been looking me up?" "No, I lived it. Every absence was a message. Every birthday that passed without a call, every school performance, every scraped knee, every damn time I looked at my mom trying not to cry when she thought I wasn't looking." Monique shifted her weight, hands folded tightly. "She gave everything," Tyrell said, turning slightly toward her. "You don't know what it's like watching someone wear strength like armor just so her child doesn't grow up bitter." "I always meant to call," Reggie said weakly. "I thought maybe you'd hate me." "You didn't call because it was easier not to. That's the truth." Reggie's face dropped. He rubbed his hands together like they could scrub away the years. "You want to know what I wanted when I was 7? Tyrell asked. "I wanted to sit on someone's shoulders at the park. I wanted to hear a man say, 'I'm proud of you.' I wanted to learn how to tie a tie from someone who looked like me." Tears were forming, but he kept going. "Instead, I taught myself. I stood in front of a mirror with a clip-on tie in one hand and YouTube in the other. Every time someone said, 'Where's your dad?' I made up stories, said he was overseas, said he was sick, said anything that didn't sound like abandonment." He paused, voice tightening. "And now you're here and I don't know if I want to scream or walk away." Reggie finally stood. His voice was quieter now. "Then scream, or punch me, or curse me out. I deserve it, but please, don't walk away." Tyrell stared at him. Reggie stepped forward, unsure, like approaching a wild animal. "I know I failed you," he said. "But you are the best thing I ever helped create. Even if all I did was pass down a name, you did the rest. And if you never want to see me again after today, I'll understand." He exhaled, trembling. "But if you ever decide you want to ask me something, anything, I'll answer. No lies, no excuses." Tyrell looked at Monique. She gave no signal, no push. This was his decision. "I'm not making promises, Tyrell said. Not today. You're not going to show up once and think this is a fairy tale. Reggie nodded. But I've spent a long time wondering why I wasn't enough. And I'm tired of wondering. He pulled out his phone, tapped in a number, then turned it toward Reggie. Your choice. Call it or let it go. Reggie stared at the screen like it was glowing. I will, he said. I swear, I will. Tyrell pocketed the phone. Then start with this. My next community talk is at Garden Hall, Thursday, 6 p.m. I speak to kids who grew up like me. Come listen. That's all. Just listen. Reggie's voice cracked. I'll be there. Tyrell nodded, then turned to Monique. We good to go? She smiled, proud and heavy all at once. We're good. As they walked toward the elevator, Reggie watched them go. He didn't chase. He didn't beg. He stood there, small for the first time in a long time, but maybe, just maybe, honest. Back in her car, Monique sat behind the wheel, watching Tyrell scroll his phone silently beside her. He finally looked up. You okay? She nodded. You? He gave a half smile. I will be. They didn't say more. The hum of the engine filled the silence as they pulled away from the courthouse, leaving the past behind them, still present, still aching, but no longer in control. Garden Hall buzzed with life. The room wasn't fancy. Chairs lined in tight rows, a modest podium on a small stage, flickering overhead lights that made the air hum. But the people made it glow. Kids with notebooks, teens with tough eyes and soft hearts, parents hanging back by the exit, mentors seated up front, everyone waiting for something real. Tyrell stood behind the curtain, fidgeting with the mic clipped to his shirt collar. He wasn't nervous to speak. He did this twice a month, but tonight was different. He peeked out. Monique sat on the left aisle, second row. Her smile was calm but proud, arms folded, chin slightly lifted, ready to watch her son shine. 2 rows behind her, near the edge of the room, sat Reggie. Alone. He wore a plain black shirt and jeans, nothing flashy, nothing trying too hard. His hands were folded in his lap. He wasn't fidgeting. He wasn't smiling either, but he was there. Tyrell's chest tightened. The organizer waved. Showtime! He stepped out, greeted by scattered applause and a few familiar cheers from kids in the front. He walked to the podium, leaned in slightly. No script, no slides, just truth. Hey, he said, voice clear. Name's Monique Preston. Some of you already know me. For those who don't, I run these talks not because I have all the answers, but because I've lived some of the questions. A few heads nodded, a few phones lifted to record. Tonight, I want to talk about silence. Not the kind where nobody's talking, but the kind that shows up when someone who's supposed to be there. He didn't look at Reggie, but he felt him there. I grew up thinking my dad was just gone. No note, no warning, just silence. My mom worked 2 jobs, came home with swollen ankles and still asked me about my day. Monique's eyes shimmered. I used to lie and say I didn't care, told myself I was stronger without him, that I didn't need a dad. But that wasn't true. He paused. I needed answers. I needed someone to say, you're not crazy for wondering why. Because silence, it eats you. Makes you fill in the blanks with your worst thoughts. The girl in the front wiped her eyes. A boy beside her sat straighter. But here's what I learned, Tyrell continued. You don't have to become the echo of someone else's absence. You get to write your own presence. He smiled gently. I had a mom who made miracles out of nothing. I had teachers who saw my fire when I was about to burn out. I had community centers that gave me microphones before I even knew how to use my voice. A light chuckle moved through the crowd. And somewhere along the way, I stopped trying to silence my past and started building something new. That's what this place is about. That's why we're here, to make sure nobody in this room feels like a ghost in their own story." He exhaled, then glanced, just for a second, toward the back. Reggie's eyes were locked on him, wet, still, listening. Tyrell looked down. "Holmes' last thing," he said. "I used to dream that one day my dad would show up at one of these talks. That maybe he'd sit in the back and just be quiet. Not to fix anything, not to explain, just to listen." He looked up, and today that happened. His face sparked. Tyrell raised a hand. "It's not a fairy tale. We're not hugging on stage or riding off into the sunset. But he came, and I see him." Reggie's breath hitched. "And that, right there, that's enough for now?" Applause rose gently, then louder, then thunderous. Tyrell stepped back, bowed his head briefly, and walked off stage. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, heart pounding, palms slick. The door opened behind him. Footsteps. Then silence. Reggie stopped beside him. "Not too close." "That was powerful," he said. Tyrell nodded. "Thanks for coming." Reggie swallowed. "You meant it? That you saw me?" "I saw a man try," Tyrell replied. "And yeah, that means something." "I'd like to come again," Reggie said. "Not just tonight, I mean to learn, help, however I can." Tyrell looked at him. For the first time he studied him not as a ghost, but as a man. Tired, weathered, wanting. "We'll see," he said. "But showing up? That's a good first step." Reggie smiled faintly. "I'll take that." Tyrell offered a small nod, then walked past him toward the parking lot where Monique waited by the car. He saw them both. She didn't rush over. She let it breathe. "You did good," she said as he approached. "I said what I needed to say." She opened the passenger door, then paused. "He's trying." "I know. Doesn't erase the past." "No," Tyrell said. "But it doesn't have to repeat either." They got in. The engine turned. The night air buzzed with peace. Back in the hallway, Reggie remained where he stood. This time, he didn't feel like a stranger. He felt like someone who'd been seen, and maybe, just maybe, someone worth seeing again.